Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, dear viewers. Greetings to our honorable guest speaker, Mr. Katim Touray. This is Mr. Muhammad Chow, the current president of the International Open University Students Union. The International Open University, it is a global accredited university having a vast body of students globally. It is a tuition-free university which only receive payments of registering in a particular semester, which ranges from the particular country that one resides. It has currently accommodated 600,000 students globally among 229 different countries. It is accredited globally. It is accredited by the Directorate of Higher Education in Somalia, Federal Republic, also accredited by the Ministry of Higher Education in the Gambia, and also accredited by the National Accreditation and Quality Assurance Authority, NACA, in the Gambia. It is also accredited by the National Council for Technical and Vocational and Other Technical Awards, NCTVA, in Sierra Leone, and also accredited by the National Council for Higher Education. The IOU officially launched the One Mass Scholarship Program, meaning 1 million scholarship program for Africa in 2017, and has graduated in the last 4 years 2,500 students in 16 African countries. In the Gambia, in Ghana, in Kenya, in Malawi, in Mozambique, in Namibia, in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone, in South Africa, in Switzerland, in Uganda, and Zimbabwe. So these are the 16 countries that we have currently graduated scholarship beneficiaries, and the scholarship program for the 1 million African scholarship is currently ongoing, and one can be a beneficiary if eligible. Without having much ado, we have our honorable guest speaker, Mr. Katim Touray, who did his certificate in public and environmental health at the Gambia College, and then have his diploma in public and environmental health at the West African Health Examination Board, WAHEB, and had his BSc, Bachelor of Science, in public and environmental health. He also has his Masters of Science in health promotion. We are indeed honored to have Mr. Katim Touray on board to discourse on the presented topic. Mr. Katim, we're indeed honored to have you on board. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think I am also deeply honored, but I will start by expressing my gratitude and my regards to the administration of IOU and the executive board of students, and also all the audience with us this afternoon. I will admit that we're going to discuss a very interesting topic, very open topic, but academically, I believe you will agree with me that this should be a whole semester topic. We'll try our best to do justice to the topic, and as captioned in the headline, we're going to talk about decoding major health mysteries of the century. That's the 20th century. Interesting. I just have an outline of talking points. Perhaps I will just want to say that for the audience to follow. I will talk about health, of course. I would want to talk about the changing concepts of health and disease during the 20th century. Just want to talk about public health a bit and early concepts of disease. And we will talk about healthcare in the age of climate change and 20th century public health achievements. I select these talking points just to touch on few issues, but I am sure there are lots to be talked about. And we hope that this session is going to be interacting, and we hope to find some interesting comments, questions that would actually get us to dive deep into some nitty-gritties as time would allow us. Just to start with health, for those of the audience perhaps who are not health-oriented, to some authors define health as a complete state of physical, mental, social, and even spiritual well-being. Hearing that definition, we would ask our questions: are we healthy? Or how many of us are healthy? We are talking about an interesting topic because the 20th century has been very challenging to the world over. The emergence of so many disease conditions, so many diseases, so many psychological issues, as you heard from the definition of health. Health is a complex interplay among an array of genetics, environmental, lifestyle factors as a result of public health. It's built on an expertise and skills from many areas, including biology, environmental, art science, sociology, government, medicine, statistics, communication, and many others. Public health is about intervention that prevents the disease from occurring as a result of benefits and trends that obviously leads to saving lives and improving the quality of life. The 20th century has been very challenging to the world over, but more particularly the developing countries such as Africa, and to be more specific, the Gambia. The strategy employed in public health is to identify and define health problems, identify the determinants, those are the factors associated with the problem, and also develop and test interventions to control the prevention of the problem, and also assess the effectiveness of the interventions. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of the factors that could be attributed to the health issues in the 20th century. Most of these are related to the food we eat, the water we drink, the bad weather, the climate change, air pollution, population growth, tobacco and substance and chemical abuse, bad sexual and reproductive practice, and bad nutrition practices, and mythology, superstition, and religion. And of course, bad trash management. We talk about the food because it's not only about food sufficiency, but the quality of food that we eat. Most of these disease conditions, or most of the diseases, are acquired through the food we eat, or deficiency or bad nutrition. We'll talk about that, sure, if time allows. Most of the diseases also that affected us in the 20th century, most of them are related to, some of them are contaminated waters, some of them are waterborne. Bad weather is, with the era of climate change, we're seeing a lot of air pollution, respiratory tract infection diseases on the rise. And most of these diseases acquired through polluted air, or some of them are droplet infections, and also climate change leading to natural disasters occurring, like floods, and you name them. Also, population growth is one of the factors that is increasing the burden in public health, increasing the public health challenges. We will reflect some steps back during the period of human civilization, when there were less people on the planet, when human beings began to become social beings, but they gather like hunter-gatherers. They only gather on one common interest, that is to hunt for food. But now, with human civilization, with the agricultural revolution, human beings have come together to form communities, countries, regions, and the growth in population of those areas has also come with negative challenges, and we'll talk about them. The other issue is tobacco and substance and other chemical abuse. These are also public health factors that pose serious challenges to the 20th century as far as health is concerned. We also have bad sexual and reproductive practices. This is also another area that poses several health risks to the population. And also bad nutrition practice. When we talk about nutrition, we will dive deep into the issue of nutrition, what nutrition actually means, overnutrition, undernutrition, and we'll talk about the ups and downs of nutrition, and it will be clear why nutrition has become a challenge in the 20th century. And we will also want to talk about myths, superstition, and religion as also another factor in the public health challenge and the upcoming of so many health problems, and not actually being the causative agents, but they're those factors that exaggerate or add up to the burden of prevention of disease. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's look at population, for example. During those times when I talked about humans being hunter-gatherers, then there were less people. But let's look at the world. Let's look at the regions where we live. Let's look at the country where we live. Let's look at the family where we are in. When we talk about population growth and overpopulation, you try to imagine the amount of square meter space that each individual have in your house, in your home, and then imagine the number of people in a particular country. These are factors that bring people into close proximity, and that is why I think public health is everybody's concern, but should start from the individual commitment. Just looking at the proximity between people, the population, the interaction, and all that, it is very easy to facilitate contagious infections. We will talk about. And also talk about the agricultural revolution. When man started to have choice of food, started to eat diverse food, and started to cultivate agricultural, stuff, and make choices of food that bring people together into communities. And these are all factors we will discuss if time allows and correlate it to the health problems that we have in the 20th century. Food supply, to the population is deemed a necessity. But again, we'll talk about how food contributes to human development. And looking at the 20th century, when there is advancement in technology, advancement in food production, more knowledge about food, more knowledge about nutrition, the advent of new products, but again, it goes with negative side effects. And we'll talk about that when we talk about nutrition and get into overnutrition, undernutrition, bad nutrition practice, but again, the good side of nutrition practices. These are when humans begin to realize the need.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Mr. Katim, it seems there is a disruption of your internet. Okay, we can give Mr. Katim a bit of time for him to reconnect. Hello, Mr. Katim. Okay, viewers. Meanwhile, before Mr. Katim quickly rejoins, those with questions can direct their questions at the Zoom chat box. For those watching from YouTube Live, can drop their questions at the YouTube chat box, and Mr. Katim would surely have a response to them. Okay, dear listeners, we can be a bit engaged. Meanwhile, before Mr. Katim joins in, so having a look at the topic, decoding major health mysteries of the current century. There has been a lot of misconceptions with regards to both food health and bodily health forward back to the 21st century. Most among them would be GMOs, genetically modified organisms. What are GMOs? GMOs are foods that have been genetically engineered that had their gene replaced from a gene taken from another organism to either expedite growth or either achieve a desired result, which constitute 80% of the current food market. There is quite a popular belief of GMO crops or GMO foods being a better option to natural unaltered plant foods, which prompt a huge divergence in the modern market in reference to GMOs. Currently, we have 80% of GMO engineered not to die when sprayed with poisonous weed killers, and we have 20% of them produce bug killers.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Katim.
Oh, my
Okay,
apology. I think my internet went down. So sorry about that. Although I've been getting you, but I don't know why my voice is not heard. I've been following all that you've been saying, and I really lose time. I don't know if I should start with the questions that you mentioned here, or I should go into ahead with my question.
Sure, you can go ahead and following the end of your presentation, then we can have a response to the questions.
Yes, because the question that you mentioned is one of the things that I mentioned regarding foods. But again, I just want to mention the few public health achievements in the 20th century. Definitely, vaccination to reduce epidemic has been a success in most parts of the country, and the Gambia is not an exception, because they are rated high as far as immunization coverage is concerned. And also, improving maternal and child health has also been a success in the world over. And I think here in the Gambia also, we registered much success as far as maternal and child health is concerned. We talked about population, and in the 20th century, a lot of work has been done, particularly in the Gambia, regarding family planning, sensitization, sexual and reproductive health, all those measures that have been taken that have registered success in the Gambia and in most parts of the world. These are contributing factors that help public health to combat and prevent certain diseases. Just for people to understand that most of the time, public health interventions are not very visible. It's not something that you can lay hands on, but it's something that you can conceptualize. That is why some authors would define public health as that disease that didn't occur. For example, that heart disease that didn't, affect people. It's because of what? It's public health. That epidemic that never occurred is because of what? Public health. That outbreak that never occurred. This is the way that you can conceptualize public health. And you only see the downs of public health when things occur, because then you tend to think this could have been prevented through public health intervention, but perhaps because of some lag, it happened. So the only means that public health will do is to try to contain them, try to find remedies for them. But public health has done also a lot of things in trying to improve our drinking water, trying to provide potable water supply by chlorinating water, providing protected wells, and improving the water supplies. I'm sure of recent, you would agree with me that even the Gambia, some interventions have been done in trying to control tobacco use and other substance abuse. All these are issues that we actually found out that have posed serious public health challenges in the Gambia in particular. And the other issue is trash management. We call it refuse management. That has been a very big municipal and health problem. There is no easy solution to it, but we will admit that in most developing countries, refuse management is a big problem. It has caused a lot of pollution, a lot of issues regarding vectors, farming, and getting disease organisms close to us. So these are areas that we really need improvement on, because public health cannot actually achieve its objective and goal unless a big effort is put into some of this. And you look at, for example, trust management. I don't think, especially in the Gambia, I have not seen, a best practice as far as refuse management is concerned, because all that we have is mainly crude dumping. The resources, the facilities, perhaps are not there to manage effectively all the crises that we have. And also, looking at the youth, it is very important to look into some of the attitudes, because health promoters have introduced behavior change. So many information, so many messages have been disseminated, so many activities have been done. But again, behavior change is a lifetime activity. It's not something that you achieve within a short period. So these are some of the things that I wanted to highlight, but I would be happy if there are questions, that will guide the discussion. I'll be very happy to talk about some of those. Mohammed, I hand over to you.
Surely. Jazakallahu khairan. This was a beneficial expoundment indeed. A presentation that we have quite learned a lot from. Meanwhile, our viewers watching live from YouTube or our viewers from the Zoom, you can kindly drop in your questions in the chat box directed to Mr. Katim. Meanwhile, Mr. Katim, you have elaborated on the beneficiaries that modern health had contributed to the health sector of the current century, notwithstanding certain missteps or certain setbacks. So how would we balance the advancement of health in the current century to the setbacks that it had created, such as the case of GMOs, such as the case of medicinal inputs, and so on?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Touray.
Am I heard?
Sure.
My apologies. I'm really having internet problems that is interrupting me. Yes, but your question regarding what could be done to balance the setbacks and with regards to the challenges of the current century, I think a lot needs to be done. There is a lot of achievement, yes, but again, like I said, everything starts with self-commitment. I think all of us needs to be committed to achieving public health, because collectively, a lot could be done though. But let's take, for example, if we are all committed, to doing practices that will prevent us against infections. Sometimes you will agree with me that with all the health education efforts, with all the sensitizations done, knowledge does not commensurate with equal behavior change. It is time for all of us to have that commitment and say, I am going to protect myself. I am not going to fall victim of any disease condition or any disease. I am going to clean my environment. I am going to eat the right food. I am going to drink the appropriate water. Those commitments, and I am going to behave in the best interest of public health. Let's see, for example, those who smoke, after knowing the damages that cigarette does to your health, but you still smoke. These are some of the things that, if it starts from the individual commitment, individual behavior change, then collectively it will be. But if the commitment is not there individually, no matter how much you prepare yourself, you get committed to your health, you can always be, infected or harmed by the condition of the other person who has no regards or commitment to public health. I think there are some interventions that could be taken at government level, at ministry level, but collectively, if we have that commitment, I think it will have a good start.
Sure. You have indeed answered the question. When we talk of responsibilities, you have dilated on personal responsibilities in reference to our collective health. Would there be a counter responsibility to administrative health bodies responsible for regulating certain health standards?
Yes. You know, I talked about individual commitment and collective responsibility, but when it comes to all the government, for example, and other non-governmental organizations contributing their quota, they are responsible of certain aspects because health is a fundamental right to every individual. Let's say, I mean, the water supply. I mean, we all have rights to consume potable water supply and access to food, access to houses. But if all these things are provided, at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to look into what we eat, the water we drink, and take care of our environment. Because honestly, if you look at, I mean, the microorganism world and our own space, what is separating them is a thin line, and factors like cleaning your environment, personal hygiene, eating good food, and living in a healthy, non-air polluted environment. Some of these things will improve your quality of life, but again, can promote, I mean, good health. The state have their responsibility, but again, as individuals, as people, as, I mean, country people, regionally, I mean, villages, we have our responsibilities, and this commitment has to be there. I feel right now public health is not only a health concern, it is a socio-economic concern, it is, I mean, everybody's concern. So perhaps other stakeholders are doing their best. Like I mentioned, we have to give thumbs up to the health promotion unit of the Ministry of Health. They're doing a lot. And other NGOs are also supporting in other ways. But behavior change is not easy. Yeah.
Sure. Talking of health regulatory bodies, we talk of the corporate responsibilities that both parties have. Now, talking of health regulatory bodies, like we have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration of America, and then we have other regulatory bodies. Do you think there is a disparity in interest to the public health of the general masses, considering GMO is being pushed by major regulatory bodies and other standards and qualities that have setbacks?
Yes, there are, I mean, a lot into that. I don't know where to start from. I don't want to get into, you know, world politics. But again, it's more natural to eat what you grow and grow what you eat. I think it was an advocate. You probably must have heard about that. For the GM guys, those guys that produce genetically, I mean, foods, perhaps their objective is to produce enough food, but are they thinking of the quality and the side effects it will have? There are lots of politics into that. I just don't want to get into that. But if I am to, I mean, say a word of advice to African countries, we better produce food for ourselves, which will be sure that they're fresh and no chemicals added. I think that will be the way forward. Otherwise, it is very difficult to control because we don't have much say on those. It's just brought to us. And yeah, that's my take.
Sure, sure. Now still following up on the point, do you think you have said you wouldn't want to delve much into
I lost it. Am I heard? Hello? 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 Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, my real apologies. Because I had internet problem.
It's fine. I think the host lost connection, but we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you can continue.
Hello, Mr. Katim.
Yes.
I was asking, but I think I lost internet for a bit of seconds.
Oh, okay.
Where are you getting what I was saying?
No, I didn't. You can say it.
My point was on the discrepancies which existed on facts that we have on ground and the purported theory that is promulgated in the wider public, like the idea of feeding the whole population, the idea of having quality foods, the idea of having better ranging seeds that can withstand natural factors. Now, would that being the case, on the ground we have seeds that are sprayed with glyphosate, and glyphosate, as we knew, destroy our gut bacteria and essentially blocking our body from having the ability to regulate blood sugar level. Then we talk of sodium nitrate in sausages. We talk of sodium nitrate in beefs and so on. So do you think there's a discrepancy between what we have on ground and the mandate or the claims of major regulatory bodies?
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Katim.
Yeah, okay. I haven't heard, but I had your questions. Because this is something that I think is absolutely not the best practice. I think the idea of GM foods is to be able to feed the world at some particular time. And all these are as a result of overpopulation, because the world is densely populated. And the population where there is no enough food is a chaos population, it's a malnourished population. But again, that should not be a justification for giving us food that at the end of the day would lead us to bad nutrition. But I mean bad nutrition, because some of the foods that we are eating today can either cause us overnutrition or undernutrition, or like you said, can cause chemical damages to our systems and our organs, leading to chronic disease conditions. Just to diverse a bit and look into some of the 20th century health conditions like cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and hypertension. All this, most of the time, as a result of the food we eat, our behavior, our attitude. No, so that is why it's very important. In as much as you want to feed the nation, you want to feed people, it is very important to look into what you're giving them. You don't want to eat belly full, but again, have certain chronic infections that will end up killing us. So to balance the two, that's why I say it involves a lot of politics that perhaps I don't want to get into. But just to answer your question, I really would encourage giving people any particular kind of food that would lead to health consequences, which could be terminal and which could destroy their life. So the best thing is for Africa in particular, to get back to our land. We have the land, we have the space. We just need to be committed to feeding ourselves. And then we'll be eating what we grow and growing what we eat. And I am not an agriculture specialist, but I am sure even the fertilizer and all that we use in agricultural farms could be produced because we have the resources. So I think, like you said, it shouldn't be like that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Touray, for answering the questions. Meanwhile, viewers, for anyone having questions, questions can kindly be directed to the chat box, either in Zoom or our participants watching live from YouTube. So please, if you have questions, kindly have them in the chat box to be directed to Mr. Touray. So Mr. Touray, with the claim of putting GMOs in the market to feed the accelerating population. So currently we have had GMOs for the past decades, and the world population is 7 billion. And still now we have cases of famine, cases of starvations in East Africa. In Yemen, we have cases of starvations in many places in the world. Do you think, what is the validity, what is the veracity of such a claim when we still have cases of starvations, when we still have lots of diseases that we have from taking in these foods? Let's say in the case of GMOs linked to glyphosate, we have cases such as autism, we have ADHD, which is a behavioral defect, we have bad defects, we have celiac diseases, we have chronic kidney diseases, we have irritable bowel syndromes, we have reproductive problems, hypothyroidism, heart diseases, liver diseases, depression, colitis, and cancer. So do you think all of these problems could substantiate the claim of still pushing out GMOs in the market?
Well, as far as I am concerned, I have never been in support of GM foods, and I don't think I will, especially for Africans, because I don't see the justification for Africans to consume GM foods because we have the space, we have the fertile land, we have the solar energy. So, with commitments, I think we should be able to produce what we need. And again, looking at all those things that you're talking about, the effects of chemicals into our system, I mean, you just cannot name them. Because when you come to non-communicable diseases, you realize that the chemicals that we inhale, that we consume, because most of the time, look at the foods that we eat. We know how they were produced, we most of the time are consumers. We don't dictate the process of the food production. We don't dictate the supplies. Sometimes we don't even dictate the price. So I think that's something that should be looked into, especially our generation, to prepare ourselves, to be committed to achieving that goal. Or otherwise, we will just leave to be consumers, leave to be victims. Because if you look at all those conditions that you've mentioned, are related to the food we eat. And that, even though the acceleration in food production has been going on for a long time, does that stop farming in Africa? Does that solve our food problems? Is it solving the food problem of those that are spearheading it? Perhaps
Surely
yes.
not.
Yeah, but how about us? So it's a big, issue, and I wouldn't have a yes or no answer to, but I think all the audience can come in and share their viewpoints. But again, I totally agree that GM foods are not the best option for food self-sufficiency. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Touray. I think the point is now well understood. We have a question from Zero Cool. He says, what is the public health doing in order to cope the looming threat of drug and substance abuse, alcohol abuse, environmental pollution, road traffic injuries? Because I tend to see them focus mainly on COVID and being mainly on the health center territories.
Yeah.
Can I read that?
I think
Can
that,
I? Okay.
yeah, okay, complete. Go ahead.
Can I reread it, or it's fine?
Well, I think he is talking about the public health intervention as far as tobacco, substance abuse, road traffic accidents. All those are part of the 10 listed achievements of public health in the 20th century, but in terms of global analysis. Now we can try to see individual African countries, how successful are we? Because we all know when you were talking about the global records, it's an average record, even though us in Africa are down the line because they are so high on top. When you take it on average point of view, it looks better. It doesn't mean that road traffic accidents, substance abuse, tobacco, and all those, substances are reduced in all African countries. But I think talking about here in the Gambia, you and I know the interventions that have been taken by the Ministry of Health as far as tobacco is concerned, because you don't see tobacco in public places. Even the advertisement and sale of tobacco is banned. And there are lots of regulations, and there are a lot of supporting agencies, trying to help public health to achieve that. But when it comes to, substance abuse and chemical abuse, there are policies, in respective countries to control them. But like I said, I believe everything should start from the commitment of the individual. Because having all the information regarding the dangers of these substances, tobacco, whether drug or whether other chemicals, having the information, then it's an individual responsibility to be committed to change your behavior, to change your practices, to protect yourself first, but also protect people around you. So unless that commitment is achieved individually, the collective commitment will be very difficult, because most of the time when these policies are installed, people just give it lip service, but individually, I think commitment is the way to go. Yeah.
Sure. Jazakallahu khairan for the question. To remind our respected viewers, anyone having questions directed to Mr. Katim can kindly drop them in the chat box. Mr. Katim, going towards herbal medicine,
Yes.
does it have any significance in the current century and the centuries to come?
Well, it depends on how you define herbal medicine. Because to me, whether conventional medicine or whether herbal medicine, I think conventional medicine was produced out of herbs. And for me, even the food you eat is under the medicine category. So, and the food we eat mainly come from what? Plants, and these herbs are also from plants. Traditional medicine today, or herbal medicine today, is so, developed today to a certain level that I think could be acceptable. It's a topic to be debated. I'm sure many people will have a different viewpoint, but looking at it, I think the major challenge of herbal medicine is to know, the dosage, the ingredients involved, the production, labeling, all of those have issues. But I have seen certain countries, certain, doctors, professors that has taken it to the next level, at least doing some laboratory analysis, trying to make varied products out of herbs, having that dosage, giving the scientific backings, the scientific knowledge. I'm not really talking about those traditional people who practice without having knowledge of the herbs that they use, without not defining the contents of the medical products that they have, not defining the ingredients, not knowing the dosages, not knowing the side effects, not knowing how many times or how long you need to take those drugs. I think I need to be clear about it too. If you're talking about those, herbalists who have no knowledge about what I said, I think I am not in support of that. But again, let's look at it, think outside the box. And to me, most of the conventional drugs were produced out of herbs, and those are the same herbs. Some people who have done research, who have done studies, making something out of it, which I think needs to be looked at and not just criticized and put aside. I think a lot of work needs to be done to see their authenticity, their validity, and then we'll be able to see if they are working or not working. That's why I was very happy when the Ministry of Health of the Gambia was supporting traditional medicine. I think there was a unit responsible of looking into traditional medicine. And the idea, I think, was to promote, the goodies and talks about the bad effects and see a way forward. That's my personal opinion. I don't know what others might think about it. Anyway, feel free to put in your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Touray. Meanwhile, those that are having questions for Mr. Touray regarding the topic, decoding modern health mysteries of the current century, can direct their questions to the chat box, and it shall surely be passed on to Mr. Touray.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I just want to talk about some superstitions and religion and myths that are actually challenging to public health especially in the 20th century. Because when you talk about, even recently, you talk about the coronavirus, I mean, it looks like some people are not having much trust in the, health systems that we have, because up to now, looking at the immunization coverage rates, you tend to wonder, why are people not going in to take this vaccination to protect themselves and their families? And if you look back in history, such has been occurring. Like in the 20th century, we have seen so many different kinds of disease conditions: measles, pertussis, yellow fever, meningitis, you name them. And they all occurred in the form of an outbreak. And because of public intervention to contain them, and later, provided vaccines to prevent people against those diseases. I believe it's the same trend with COVID. We're trying to do our best to fight it. The vaccines are available, so sometimes I tend to wonder, is it lack of trust? Is it because of some mystical beliefs? Is it because of what is it? Is it because if people can go to the clinic to take vaccination, against measles, yellow fever, and even travelers to go and take meningitis, it's the same vaccine, that has gone through the same scrutiny and brought to you by your trusted health workers. So it seems as if up to now, mystically, religiously, and with some superstition, there are some few challenges relating to this as far as public health is concerned. And I think at this high time we try to see how best we can prepare ourselves, prepare our generation for better public health interventions.
Sure. Do you think that is as a result of the many discrepancies or many inconsistencies in reference to the COVID-19 that is lowering the rate of trust that people have for the COVID vaccines?
Well, I was involved in community sensitization across the country, but in most of the communities that I have gone to, the excuses that they give usually lack of trust on the manufacturers or those that are giving us these vaccines, lack of uncertainty, and there were so many misinformations coming from different directions, from social media, from so many people who are not health workers. And I was rather surprising that people were trusted non-health workers, for health advice, and pay less heed to the advice of the health worker. So that was a big challenge that we have, because people will tell you, according to social media, if you take this vaccine, this, that, and that, a lot of abuse taboos were developed around the vaccine. So yeah, maybe those are the situations.
Sure. And do you think these superstitions that the public hold is as a direct result of the many inconsistencies in the medical sector? For example, with regards to GMO, GMOs are now standardized and approved by the FDA. And we have certain inconsistencies with regards to SARS-1, SARS-2, and the current COVID-19. Do you think all this contributed to the lack of belief or lack of trust of the mass populace in taking the vaccine? And behold, there has been lots of theories surrounding the vaccine, and this current vaccine and mRNA vaccine is quite different from the previous vaccines that were manufactured. And it hasn't undergone the standard process that previous vaccines has undergone through inoculation and so on. So do you think all this contributed to the lack of belief and lack of trust that the mass populace have for the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, sure. Because that was one of the arguments that people put across, because there was not enough time to complete the study, to thorough investigation about the vaccine. But again, I mean, the WHO is the coordinating body that approves and disapproves, obviously. If they represent the entire world and give the go-ahead, the okay for the vaccine to be used, I think we should trust that they're the people that know. And I am not sure if they will do anything that will be detrimental to the health of the people. But again, those were the lack of trust. And again, sometimes we don't have substantive evidence to scientific proofs to put across for most of the things that we criticize. For sometimes it may require some thorough scientific investigation, before we can actually talk about certain things. But I'm certain if the scientific evidence is there that those are causing machine for all some of these things that mentioned, I think there is a cause for concern. And under no circumstance should we involve in any practice or any activities that would be injurious to our health. And I believe that is the concern of health workers, both at home and internationally.
Sure, sure. I guess the point is now clearly understood. We have a question from Zero Call. He says, I believe the public health should not only shoulder the responsibility for warning people against these GMOs. How can one convince the horticulture woman gardener that selecting and using GMO seeds with characteristics such as higher yield, resistance to pests, and hardiness is bad? Because most of them are uneducated. Hence, GMO products appear as bigger and tend to sell faster, thereby bringing more income. So the argument is, how does one make sure that the farmers focus on public health rather than financial improvement?
Well, as far as I know, is it usually labeled that this is GM seeds? I am not an agriculturist, but I think if it is properly labeled and people are well informed, then it is up to personal choice. Even though, from the public health point of view, we know the repercussions of using those seeds or eating those products. But again, if people have the individual choice to, perhaps there is more to that. I mean, for most of those producing those foods, are they the ones consuming it? Because now I hear the agriculture talking about agro-business. It's like people are more interested in what they get out of it than the repercussion it will have as far as their health is concerned. I think government policies, this should be a government to regulate what comes into the country. Like I said, public health is not only a health concern, but it has a socio-economic denomination. So it should be a combined effort of everybody, because public health officers cannot be successful if they don't have the support of the other stakeholders, the agriculturists, you name them. I think it's everybody's concern. But again, it is the state's responsibility to decide what its people use, what is consumed, what is grown, and how it is going to be distributed fairly across the country so that people get maximum benefit with less injury as far as their health is concerned.
Sure. Okay. Okay, we have no questions for now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to apologize, of course, for bad network that has interrupted my sessions in so many ways. I had some few things to say, but I am happy if the discussion is more specific. Like today is interesting. It looks like most of the questions are on food and GM food. That makes the discussion live and interesting and more focused. But I hope the opportunity arises next time we will focus on, a certain area, and it will make the coordination easier and for people to follow. But nonetheless, I think I appreciate it anyway.
Sure. We have 15 minutes remaining. So would you want to conclude with anything, Mr. Touray?
Yes, there are a few things that I even want to talk about. Here, I just want to be a little bit focus on certain things, because most of the questions were on food. But like I said, food is not only about access or quantity. I think there is more to food when we talk about food, because you have to look about the nutrition aspects of the food that we eat. And today, especially in the 20th century, so many people are struggling with diet-related non-communicable diseases, and which is as a result of so many factors. People are eating food for so many reasons. Some people are eating to survive. Some people are eating food, to grow and develop. But it is important to note that when you look at the nutrition status of so many people are suffering from overnutrition, like obesity, and the underlying factors that it could lead to, while some people are struggling with malnutrition, undernutrition. So it's two sides of the coin. Whilst we are talking about GM foods and all those stuff, I think the problem that developing countries have is eating the right foods at the right time, in the right quantity. And this has been a challenge. And I believe this could be the reason why so many people are opting for foods like GM foods, because they don't have any choice. You go to some communities, they can eat anything they have because their socioeconomic status does not avail them the opportunity to have informed choice, to have choice to access, to make choice to the type of food that they will eat and food that they will not. So all these are factors that is contributing to both our problems as far as food and agriculture is concerned. Sometimes you see communities accepting certain types of seeds, certain types of foods because they don't have choice. There is no other alternative. Like even if you consider in some countries, the rice that we consume is not the best. I mean, other products that they consume, you go to certain parts of the country, they don't eat those things because they have enough to make choices. And even the nutrition problem, it varies in countries, continents. You go to developed countries, malnutrition is not a very big issue. For them, their issue is overnutrition. They're suffering from obesity, controlling their diet, and the related health conditions such as the diabetes, the hypertension, the cardiovascular diseases. And you come back to us, even in the Gambia, I mean, nutrition varies in regions, in urban areas, in rural areas, because of what? The choice and access. It's a big problem. And perhaps the way forward will be for us to try to look into the food supply chain as far as the Gambia is concerned. And with policies, we should be able to at least do something to improve the situation. Yeah, but nutrition, food security, food.
Hello, Mr. Katim.
Yeah, hello. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. I'm so sorry. Today I have a bad internet service. It's interrupting me all the time. Yeah, but that's what I wanted to add. If there is any question regarding that, yeah, before I get into some aspects.
We have no question for now.
Okay. Yeah, just to talk about um, um, sexual and reproductive health, especially as we are talking to mostly youth. These are attitudinal change that we would really challenge youth to give that self-commitment to, because we all know that HIV was one of the, I mean, disease conditions that pose a big challenge to most developing countries. Not to say a lot of effort has been made, and definitely I think a lot of success has been registered, but we want to keep or improve the level that we are, or we don't want to get to worst case scenario. And that really requires the commitment, especially of the sexually active group, those are the youths, to take responsibility of their own actions and to commit to keeping themselves and their families healthy. It has been a very big challenge. So,
Hello, yeah.
yeah, sorry, I was interrupted again. And when you look at water supply, for example, still a problem in most African countries. How many of our population have potable water supply? How many of rural communities are still drinking from ponds? What are the water treatment mechanisms in place? And wholesome and potable water supply is a right to all the citizens. But because of the socio-economic status of countries, especially developing countries, perhaps there is not the means to provide for everyone. But again, there are some public health measures that could be done in situations where either the states or, some powerful people cannot provide for the water supply. What do we do as communities to protect or at least to improve our water supplies? These are some of the things that really needs to be achieved if you want to have health for all in the coming century. Yeah, and again, you know that with this climate change, lots of sea and water pollution, air pollution, and most of it is caused by industrialization and some of human activities that are depreciating the ozone layer and causing chemical pollution that results into so many airborne and respiratory tract infections. Some of them are even terminal ailments, such like the cancers. So all these are things that definitely everybody needs to be committed to, and collectively we need to have that commitment. But again, they need the backing of the states, providing resources, providing those policies that will guide individuals to safe practices and public health interventions that will improve our quality of life. But again, because long life. Yeah, these are things that I just wanted to add to. Perhaps if we have other questions on some of the factors that I mentioned, we can elaborate more on that. Yeah, thank you. Hello? Hello?
Oh, hello, Mr. Katim.
Yeah, are you getting me?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
We have this last question from Zero Call. We have 5 more minutes. He says, how much of a stake does the National Food and Safety Authority have on this fight, considering that some of the foodstuffs and drugs coupled with some of the gadgets that affect our health, which are imported in the country, should be vetted by them, I guess?
Yes, as far as public health is concerned, I'm not too sure if it is the same in all countries. Because for most countries, the public health department have food hygiene units, and those are responsible of looking into all types of foods that are produced, exposed for sale. And then you have also the quality control unit that looks into the laboratory aspect of produced foods locally and imported or exported foods, whether they meet the stipulated guidelines for the quality of those products. I think those are the people who look into most of those things, and I have no objection that they are looking into some of those things. But like I said, I am not working for the Ministry of Health, and I don't want to take responsibility assuring everyone that is being done.
Sure, sure. Mr. Touray, what will be your concluding remarks?
Well, my concluding remarks will be, I really apologize for the bad internet, because I wish that this session had no interruptions as planned. But again, this technology is something that not mine or your making.
Sure.
But I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be part of this academic forum. it's so interesting and interactive. But I hope when we come to discuss in specific topics, so that a whole discussion will be centered on specific topic, so that people can really make sense out of the lecture. And I just want to thank the administration of IU and students, you guys especially, for giving me this opportunity. I think I'll be more than happy to be part of such interesting forum. And I want to thank also my colleague, the speakers who have been here. I want to apologize if anything said that has not gone quite well. I take responsibility and my apologies. But for anything that went well, I don't take the credit, because I am just trying to give somebody's information and something that I learned. Feel like I'm your way. Thank you, everybody. And again, sorry for the bad quality of my network. And I wish I had it really better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Touray. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah reward your efforts. We are indeed honored to have you on board, and we hope to have you in subsequent sessions in the future. We're indeed great to have you. Dear viewers, this was all what we have for the seminar, Decoding Major Health Mysteries of the Current Centuries. Do check in. We'll be having feature seminars in days to come. This is Muhammad Chow, the current president of the International Open University Gambia Students Union, and the program is hosted by the International Open University. Do kindly check in. The International Open University offers undergraduate programs in psychology, in banking and finance, in business administration, in education, in Islamic studies, in Arabic language, in computer science, in IT, and we offer graduate and undergraduate programs and PhD programs. We do offer a degree in law, a bachelor's degree, bachelor's of arts in law, and we do offer diplomas and certificates in the above listed subjects. So do kindly check in to gain admission in any of the respected listed subjects. Thank you, and thank you, dear Mr. Touray, for having you on board. We indeed grateful.
Thank you.